My name is Brian Shaw, and I'm on faculty at Columbia College Chicago in the theater department and have been for really a long time. Thank you so much for joining us. It's really a pleasure to have you here. So I'm also, I'll do a little intro just so y'all know what the heck we're doing here this evening, and then we'll let, most importantly is to let the students who are here share their stories, which is great. So I'm also a board member with the Sar Siddons Society, and I'm the board liaison to the Artistic Council with the Sar Siddons Society. I use he, him, his pronouns. So we thought about doing this as a webinar format, and then it's great that we have a bunch of people here, but I think there's enough. We're a small enough group that I think a basic sort of Zoom format is going to work just fine. So just in terms of how we're going to work this as we go along, well, first of all, please make sure that you are muted audibly, so that unless you're speaking, so that we don't get sort of weird feedback and all that kind of stuff, or we don't hear your strange conversation with your roommate or whatever you're watching on your television, or who knows what on your computer. So anyway, so as we go along, if you have questions for the panelists as they begin sort of speaking and sharing their stories, and if things come up, please write your questions into the chat, and I will do my best to sort of keep track of them as we go along, and make sure that after the panelists have spoken, that we have time that I'll kind of go through and pull some questions out and ask the panelists. But also, depending on how many questions sort of pop into the chat, and if things come up, use your fabulous reaction button, and I will of course show you. Most of you know how to do this. If you raise your hand on the Zoom land, I will notice that your hand is up, and I will write your name down, and I will try to keep track of who has sort of posted a question when, and try to sort of monitor and keep track of the thing. Be aware that once you've posted your hand, you actually need to lower your hand in order to lower your hand and make it go away. But feel free. This is, I mean, we really do want your participation. We really want your questions to sort of really activate and animate the discussion. So so here's a little. I'm going to read off a piece of paper so I don't overspeak my welcome, if you will. So yeah, hi, and welcome to Keeping It Going, presented by the Artistic Council of the Sar Siddons Society. The Siddons Society is an organization currently celebrating its 70th year of existence, and is really dedicated primarily to theater, live performance, but really to providing scholarships for students at some of the major performing arts schools here in Chicago. So those would be Northwestern, DePaul, Roosevelt, and Columbia College Chicago. So so we, as somebody who teaches in a theater department, in one of those theater departments, ongoing incredible gratefulness to the Sar Siddons Society for providing scholarship support to our students for 20 plus years. So at Columbia College specifically, so thank you. And the Artistic Council was established in 2021. And that was really, really Marty and I kind of talked about that and sort of thought about something we might do as to really kind of activate the Sar Siddons Society in some ways into the ongoing conversation with especially young artists in the city of Chicago. And so the idea behind the council is to really activate and engage in these conversations, especially as with the changes that the performing arts have been going through in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and probably should have been going through for the last 20 years, but that have become really acute in so many important ways in the last number of years with We See You White American Theater and the Black Lives Matter movement, and of course what's happened with the pandemic, et cetera. So so a real desire to activate and be part of a really important conversation that is going on about theater, who's doing it, why, for whom, et cetera. So last week on Monday, we hosted a live panel of this very same sort of idea of recent graduates who've left college in the last 2-3 years. We held that at Columbia College Chicago. It was a really exciting group. We had students from DePaul and Roosevelt and Columbia there. Other panels we're planning include a session that is focused on institutional changes in arts organizations over the past 2 years, and Kaiser Ahmed from Jackalope Theater and Chris Carter-Brown from the Mercury will anchor that conversation. We're also putting together a panel that is focused on teaching theater, looking at college, university teaching, high school teaching, and the work of the teaching artist. So really thinking about teaching theater from a number of perspectives. And in forming tonight's panel, we came up with a series of questions and asked our guests to respond to 2 or 3 of the questions from the list. Each of our panelists will speak for about 10 minutes to outline their experiences and the discoveries they've made since graduating from university. And then we'll open up space for the questions you have and engage in a more fluid conversation. And part of in terms of the guests we have tonight, Bree is currently in Atlanta, so has left Chicago and has moved to Atlanta. And Remy has left Chicago and is in New York. And Sar Cohen has remained in Chicago, but could move back to Mexico City. And I'm curious about that decision. But also, so we're also, want to address the question of thinking about moving to another market or about staying in the Chicago market is another question that will come up tonight, I think, another thing. So anyway, I'm going to introduce our panelists. So we have Bree Jacobs, who graduated from Columbia College in 2020. She has continued her journey as an actor in Atlanta, Georgia, where she spends time auditioning, training, and collaborating, thank you very much, with other creatives on local projects. She's represented by Shirley Hamilton Talent in Chicago. Thank you. Remy Leifer. Remy is a recent graduate of Northwestern University's theater department. Since graduating, he's worked on NBC's New Amsterdam in a co-star role and Hulu's The Food That Built America in a guest star role. Along with acting, he's a music enthusiast and has released original music under the title Remy Quinn. Sar Cohen is an actor, dancer, and creative from Mexico living in Chicago. She graduated from Columbia College and since appeared in plays and short films in the Chicago area. Most recently, she starred and co-produced a short called Even Saints Bleed. Give a round of applause to our panelists who are here to share their stories. Thank you for the claps. And yeah, just to really hear what's happened to them in the few years or few months since they've graduated from college. So Bree has volunteered to begin. So Bree is going to start. So give it up for Bree, and I'm going away. Thanks.
Hey guys, I'm Bree. As Ryan said, I graduated from Columbia in 2020. That was an experience that I had. So I graduated in 2020. I went home to Missouri. I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. I went there and I was there for about a year. And I was kind of thinking, originally I was going to move back to Chicago. But I was thinking, like, I can really go anywhere now since I'm kind of having a clean slate right now. And I thought about moving to Atlanta while I was in school, but I don't know. I just was like, I'll stay in Chicago for a couple years and then I'll see what happens. And so, yeah, I was deciding where to move after that year. After graduating, I was like, maybe I'll go to LA, I don't know. And I was like, I'm gonna try Atlanta. And even if I'm here for like a year, then, I leave. And I was doing a lot of research, and Atlanta in general kind of ignored the pandemic, which is like not great, but that meant that the film and TV industry was still moving here while it was moving in LA. And so there was a lot going on here still. There was a lot of stuff that was moving from LA to start filming in Atlanta. And so I was like, that could be a good place to go to kind of explore the TV film world. So yeah, I moved here last year on March 1st. It's been about a year and I love it. The TV film community is huge here. I think that the acting community kind of reminds me of Chicago's in the way that it's very kind of tight-knit and collaborative, and everybody kind of it sticks up for each other and is there for each other and supportive. I started taking acting classes, which amazing, have really transformed me as an actor. Working on like short films and web series and things like that. And then I've been also recently trying to get into the theater community here as well. There's a huge one here. And yeah, it's a continuously growing industry here with TV and film. And I think it's been really, really great. And then let me look at these questions because they kind of pertain to what I've been saying. So one of the questions that I was looking at was about resources and how to find work and everything. And it's different for everywhere. Like I know in Chicago, there's theater in Chicago, there's like League of Theater in Chicago, all these things. But what I found helpful is of course the regular things like Actors Access, Backstage is good for like short films, things of that nature. And then casting networks, I think if you want. For me, casting networks hasn't been super beneficial necessarily, but every now and then I get a casting call and I'm like, oh, I'll submit for that. But those are what I use kind of to submit for things myself. And obviously I have agents in Chicago and in Atlanta, so I get auditions from them as well. But I use those sites to kind of find things. But I think the biggest thing for me has been class. I've been taking acting classes. And let me also note that because financially, which I can get into as well, it can be very difficult. But I saved about a year's worth of rent before I moved here. And then when I moved here, I started working immediately. So I was saving up a lot of money to be able to like go to class and do things like that. But I would recommend, I know you're in school now, so you're thinking, why do I have to go to class? But as an actor, like you're always going to be growing and finding things that you want to work on and improve on. And even just exercising your instrument as an actor, I think is very important. But I think class has been an amazing resource just because I've learned so much from my teachers and the students as well. They come from all walks of life. Some people are just starting out as actors. Some people are already booking TV jobs, but it's just this place to kind of explore and play and meet people and just be able to be creative, because don't take for granted that while you're in school, every single day you get to perform and be creative, because once you graduate, you gotta go to work and do adult things. And so you have to actually carve out time to do that. And I think class is an amazing resource to do that. And just to network as well. I mean, you're in class with a bunch of actors, so you're gonna network with other actors and people who like make films and write and all of that. So that's a good resource that I found for myself. I think the biggest thing for me since graduating, because it was like when I graduated, I felt like there was this idea that you graduate and then you immediately start working. And right before the pandemic hit, I was auditioning for stuff and I was like, oh, I got to call back here or whatever. And then all that got taken away because COVID happened. There was none of that anymore. And so this idea that I had in school of like, oh, I'm just going to go to school for 4 years, I'm going to study, and then I'm going to graduate and everything will be fine. Like I'll get a job or I'll start working, is not always the case. For some people it is, but for some people it's not. So I think that's the biggest thing that I've been working through since graduation, is really just the mental aspect of it all. Realizing that it's a career, so it takes time. It's not gonna be something that happens, you know, I'm not gonna wake up tomorrow morning and be paying my bills as an actor. Like it takes time to build that. And then also just not comparing. I know we talked about it a little bit. Sar and Remy and I talked about it a little bit when we met the other day. Sometimes it gets hard to not compare yourself to your peers or your friends or like just people that you know in general, when you see they booked something or they're going on this audition or they got this call back or they made this film or whatever. And I was telling them that sometimes I feel like a bad person because I'm like, I shouldn't be comparing myself, or I shouldn't be like, oh, why am I doing something wrong when it's their success? But it happens. I mean, I try to give myself grace with that and knowing that it happens. And also reminding myself again that it just takes time and it comes in waves, and there'll be times when you're popping and you got all this work coming. There'll be times when you maybe aren't right now, but that doesn't devalue you as an artist. And it doesn't make what you have done any less valid. And so yeah, for me, my biggest thing has really been the mental health aspect of it, because I know how to do the work. I know how to go to class. I know how to submit for stuff. I put my auditions in on time. I do the work, but for me, I had just been so hard on myself about, oh, I didn't book something, or I haven't gotten to this place at this certain time, or I'm not working and I just graduated in the middle of a pandemic when there wasn't even any work to have in the first place. But just finding a way to take care of myself and kind of just like set up my life in a way that allows me to give myself more grace and know that it's not the end of the world. I know it can feel like it for me, but it's not the end of the world. And you just have to find ways to take care of yourself in the midst of all that. And ways that I definitely do that, I think the idea of success for me has changed, or what like a win, they call it like a win. A win for me in college would have been, oh, I'm gonna book a job, oh, I'm gonna get an agent or whatever. But a lot of that stuff is out of my control. So a win for me may be, oh, I got called in for this casting director for the 5th time. They must like me. Or, oh, I feel really good about that scene I did in class, or something like that. Just finding ways to kind of celebrate what I'm doing. So I think the focus is always on like booking a job or what everybody else can see you doing. But at the end of the day, that's not gonna be like what it is most of the time. It's gonna be you working towards that most of the time. But yeah, that's my soapbox about like taking care of yourself and like the mental health aspect of it. Just for me, that was huge, because I had not been taking care of myself the whole time I was in school. Yes, Ryan said, are some of my wins outside of the industry. Yes, like my win today was I freaking put a bed together. Like I did that, or I got to cook dinner. Like they don't have to be related to acting or performing or anything of that nature. It's important because, like I said, I was in college, I was beating myself up about everything. And it's hard to focus as an actor and do my best work when I'm not even being kind to myself, because all that's in my head. But yeah, that's my soapbox about self-care. On a practical note, I do want to talk about self-taping, because since the pandemic happened, pretty much it's all self-taping, at least initially. They do some callbacks like through Zoom or in person sometimes. It's starting to open back up now, but pretty much everybody's self-taping. And I really didn't know a lot about that when I graduated. And in Atlanta, they were self-taping years before the pandemic. So everybody here, that's just their life. They self-tape. And so I had to learn kind of how to navigate that, because I didn't really learn that before I graduated. So I guess tips on that, I would say like, it is worth the investment to get like a background and get like a ring light. And they aren't, if you go on Amazon, I promise you, Amazon has some really good stuff for a good price as far as that stuff. But yeah, I would say with self-taping, if you can like save money to invest in like a good background and a ring light and everything, you can use your phone to self-tape. Everybody I know uses a phone. They're really good quality now. And I also say practice self-taping, because I think self-taping an audition is separate from being a good actor. Like it's a whole different animal. Just the technicality of it, even just the technique as an actor, definitely practice self-taping. If you just like get a scene and record yourself and get a reader and just watch it and see what looks good, what sounds good, because it's not going anywhere. I don't think self-taping is gonna go away. I think it's going to be, everybody's gonna be self-taping from now on, because it's easier for the casting directors and things. And then if you want, I don't know if anybody's ever heard of this. It's a podcast called Audrey Helps Actors. She's this actor in she's in LA, but she's very big on like actors doing the work. And she has this thing called Self-Tape May every year, where she encourages actors to do 16 self-tapes in that month. It can be like a one-line co-star, it can be like a 12-page series regular, whatever. But I think if you guys want, like, you can message me, we can do it together. I think it's very beneficial just to be practicing it because it's not going anywhere. And it's a whole other animal. But yeah, that's what I would have on the practical side. And I, got on my soapbox. Oh yes, it's called Audrey Helps Actors. I'll write it in the chat as well. I love it. It's amazing. And it's really helped me because she talks a lot about stuff about the industry that you wouldn't know unless you're really doing your research about it. And so it's been very helpful for me. But I'll put it in the chat so everybody can have that. But yeah, anybody, like, if you have questions. Oh yeah, I'm done, Ryan.
Yeah, no, thank you, Bree. Cool. Yeah, no, well, I'm sure people will have questions for you when we're done hearing from Remy and from Sar. So I think we'll slide into the land of Remy Leifer and hear what Remy has to say. Cool.
Sure. Hello, everyone. It's nice to be here. It's cool to be in this Zoom setting. I haven't been in a Zoom since college, so it's a fun little redo. Thanks for having me. I just graduated from Northwestern, class of 2021. So I graduated this past June. And about a week after graduation, I moved to New York with 3 of my best friends, 3 non-actors, 3 people who have steady jobs, and it's been very interesting, living with them, because on one hand, you see yourself as like not progressing as much as they are because, they're going to work every day and they have a job that's paying them bills and it's what they want to do. And, it's also awesome because you're not with theater people and you don't have to talk theater all the time, which is so great. Anyways, so I moved to New York because I've always wanted to move here. It's been a dream of mine ever since like I grew up. I always knew I wanted to be an actor, struggling in New York. That was like the dream, eating ramen. And I'm from Connecticut, so it was sort of like, I know New York, I'm totally going to do it. I didn't really have any hesitation. When I was in Chicago at Northwestern, there were a couple years there where I was like, maybe I should move to Chicago. There's going to be connections out there that Northwestern has for me that I might not have in New York. And I was really considering it. And I'd say about 75% of my friends, 75% of the theater class all moved to Chicago. So there was already a big community out there. But after talking to a lot of people, a big thing I always heard was, if you're going to go to New York, go to New York. Don't take your time in Chicago, because a lot of the skills or a lot of the connections you make in Chicago don't translate to New York. And people who I've spoken to that are from Northwestern, who are about 3 years after graduation, who have moved to New York, have told me that they kind of regretted staying in Chicago for the first 2 years, because they felt like as soon as they moved to New York, they felt back at ground zero and like they had to start making those connections all over again. So that was also a big reason why I decided to go right away. It is, incredibly expensive to live here. I was just talking about that with Brian right beforehand. That is no joke. You got to be prepared if you're going to go to New York to, work your ass off, because you have to pay rent and it's a lot of money. And I don't, I haven't gotten to the point where I'm paying my bills as an actor. That would be really awesome. Right now, to pay the bills, I work at a restaurant. I'm working, I'd say, anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, depends on the week. A good week is 4. I love 4 days a week. That's, right in a good spot. But there are challenging days. There are also days where I feel so grateful and so lucky to be here. Just like a typical like weekly schedule for me, if you're interested, is I get, I do 4 days at the restaurant, and the job starts at 4 and ends at midnight. So if I have an audition that week, and normally I have about 2 or 3 a week, I do an audition like at 1 p.m. and then I hop on the subway and go to work. And that's kind of like how my day goes. And then I come home. And so my first 5 months here, I was a back waiter, where I didn't really have to talk to customers that much, didn't have to talk to guests that much. So I would be memorizing my lines, like while I was like polishing silverware or, like filling up water bottles. I'd just be going through my lines, because it's hard. You get 2-3 auditions a week. And it's a fast turnaround time. You got to be memorizing and then doing. So I would say the first like 5-6 months I was here was a lot about learning and prioritizing my time and making a budget and like just adapting to the real world. Because like Bree said, you have a great structure when you're in college of like, okay, I got to do this today. I got to do this today. When you're in the real world, it's a whole different animal. So yeah, the first thing I did was like, I made a budget. I knew how much I was going to spend, X, Y, and Z. And also I had to save up to move here as well. I was working throughout all of college to save up some money to move here, but yeah, great. Okay, where was I? So I have about 2-3 auditions a week. And how I get those auditions is through my agent and my manager. So a little bit about that process. I got an agent through Showcase. Northwestern has like an end of the year showcase. I'm sure you guys do as well. And I'd say only about 3 people in my class were able to get agents through Showcase. So if you're like thinking like Showcase is the end all be all, it really isn't, because all the people who didn't get agents through Showcase, 2 months later, got an agent from someone, worked this job, found a connection, got an agent there. Showcase really isn't everything. And when you're a senior, you think it is. You think Showcase is like, I really, like, if this doesn't work out, I'm done. I'm not going to be an actor. It's fine. Some of the best people I know didn't get agents, and it was like baffling. And then 3 months later, they get an agent and they book this TV thing, and they're like, there you go. Those are the people that are going to make it. A lot of the great people I know at Northwestern stopped acting. And a lot of the people I thought were, fine, have done really great things. So another thing is like, a lot of it is random and luck. And you'll get the luck and the randomness through your perseverance. So at some point, that luck is going to fall onto you. Another thing about New York is, sorry, I'm going in so many different directions, but another thing about New York is there are so many people doing so many things, and you never know where you're going to meet them. You have no idea. It was the first week I was in New York, and I was at my sister's birthday party, and she had a friend who was like a friend of the son of the owner of CAA. And I was like, oh my God, we're totally gonna have a conversation right now. And we had a conversation. I gave him my reel, and I was like, there you go, come on, talk to me. He got me in contact with someone over there. And then I, was on the phone with his friend who was an agent there. And I was like, okay. And it's just like, I didn't get signed by them. that would have been awesome. But it's just a contact to have, that like now I have this guy and I can always ask him questions. Like he was so helpful. So you never know who you're going to run into. I was just at a concert and I met an actor who was on Broadway who's like writing this show, and we like hit it off at this concert, and all of a sudden he was like, by the way, I'm writing this play and you'd be like really good for it. And I'm like, you're writing a play? Who are you? And so like connections can be made anywhere. So you're never allowed to be an asshole, because you never know who you're talking to. Where am I? How much do I have more time? Should I keep talking?
Hi, Remy. I think we'll have, I'm sure there'll be some questions for you.
Great.
So that was totally great. Thank you. You were fabulous. Sar, do you want to jump in?
Of course. I will jump in. Hold on. I'm on the like speaker view, so I don't want to see my giant face all the time. All right. So I'll start by saying kind of how why I stayed in Chicago. I grew up in Mexico City, and a lot of the acting world there that I knew was telenovelas, which I, first of all, would not get cast in because of the type of woman that they cast in those, and second of all, because I just don't like telenovelas. No offense, I just don't enjoy them. Don't watch them. That's that. So I decided to. I came to Chicago and I studied at Columbia College. Graduated 2018, and I kind of fell in love with the city a little bit, to be honest. And I also got signed through Showcase with Grossman and Jack Talent, which I thought was obviously really awesome, and decided to stay here because of that, and because of the people I'd met, the connections I made through my time here. Since graduating, a lot of the stuff that Bree and Remy have pointed out, I think is super, super great. Like, definitely being in college, I know I saw that there were like some sophomores still or some seniors, like maybe you have a little bit of time, really make sure that you're enjoying your time at theater school and or acting school, whatever you want to call it, and really giving it your all while you're there, because sooner or later you're going to come out and you're not going to have as many opportunities to be that creative and to explore all of those things. So that's definitely something that I look back on and wish I had known that in retrospect, so I could have done more things, like said yes to more things while I was in college. Because after getting out of college, I've said like yes to so many things that maybe haven't paid me, but that have really given back some of that creativity I miss. Let's see, let me look at my notes. So something I wish that I knew while I was in college was just how to treat my career a little bit more as a business. I think that my co-speakers have definitely touched on that. I think that I was very focused on like, oh, there's this show going up and I want to be in the show, so I'm going to audition for it. Or, oh, I have this class to do. And like, it's definitely important to focus on those things, but to also think a little bit more about what it means that you yourself are a business. Like, you have to treat yourself like that. And that involves a lot of things. It involves going to classes, as Bree said. I'm actually starting a class tomorrow at Vagabond. If anyone needs classes in Chicago after college, they're a good resource. There's so many places you can take classes. So definitely that. And as well as having your resources. Self-taping, super important. Have your resources, invest in them. I do a lot of voiceover as well. So that is it's so cool to do voiceover. Take a voiceover class, get yourself a small mic. There's some that aren't too expensive, like maybe $70, and you can plug them into your phone and record. There's such good money there. And it's actually a lot of fun. So I know it's like not as glamorous as theater or film, but definitely a good resource. And yeah, I think that maybe also, how do I say this? I think that I have definitely gotten a lot of projects through knowing people. So like what Remy said about, you know, being a good person to people around, coming up to a job and knowing that you know how to do your job. People aren't gonna hire you because you're this amazing, talented person. They're gonna hire you because you can do the job, because you're good to work with, and because you fit the role. That's really it. It's not about who's the best actor here. It's about who fits the type and who's nailing the type that we want. So that's a lot of it. And if you know what your type is and you know what auditions to go for, if you think about it that way, it kind of helps you not take it so personally. I know there's so much rejection, like you'll go on, I don't know, 80% or 90% of the auditions that you go on, you're not going to book. So you have to really have that mentality to be like, okay, I went on this audition. If I get it, that's great. If I get a callback, that's awesome. But if I don't, it's not a personal thing. It's not because I don't know how to do my job. Obviously, if you're taking classes and you have all your bases, it's because you didn't fit the type. You were too short. Like there, it could be such a small thing. So definitely don't get caught up in not booking something and think more about, you know, what's the next thing you're gonna do. I'm getting warm. I don't know why. I talk too fast. I feel like I want to cover a lot of information. But I also want to talk a little bit about, you know, having agents versus not having agents. Um, I have a lot of friends that are still in the business in Chicago, and they don't have agents, and it's a whole different world for them. Finding auditions for them is very, very different than finding auditions if you have agents, or even for myself. Projects that I look out for without my agents are, you know, your agents are going to give you those big TV gigs, or like those castings that are like those Chips Ahoy commercials or whatever it is. And you looking for stuff on your own, you know, theater is different as well. But you're going to find like short films and student films and a lot of that. And you can also create your own work. I saw someone that was doing creative writing, I think. So, you know, if you like writing and you are an actor and you want to create your own work, and you have a friend that is a cinematographer or someone who's a director, collaborate, create your own work. That's, you know, if you want to be creative, that is also an option. The film that I produced in the last year is something that we were going to make regardless of whether we had a budget or not. And we ended up submitting for grants. We got funded. I got paid. It was awesome. And we were able to produce something that we might submit to festivals that might lead into a different thing. Sorry. What was I saying? Yeah, produce your own work, make your own work. And you're also going to meet people doing that. If you in a project, like I was just in a scouting, we were scouting locations for another thing that I'm doing later this year. I met someone who was like producing some work for some big brands, and I was like, I'm an actor, and they were like, I'll think of you. It's a lot of that. And I don't want to talk for too much longer, but I think that sometimes you have to think about financial stability. Sometimes you have to pay your bills before you have to audition. You don't have time to learn your lines, or it's definitely better to come to an audition prepared than to come to the audition not knowing your lines and like winging it, because you want to make a good impression. And audition sometimes, you know, even if you don't get booked, at least you get seen, and that's still really important because someone is going to have that impression of you, and you want to make sure to be prepared for your auditions, and maybe hopefully to find a job that'll give you the time to balance, you know, both. I'm really lucky to I recently got a job that I recommended to Bree, that is a digital it's an online, they need actors to like voice avatars and stuff. I don't think they're hiring right now, but I can share the website to see if people wanna like need a job for that. And they pay good hourly wages, and they're like a good company, and you just work from home and you make your own schedule, and it helps you balance those things, because the job that I had beforehand was really stressful. It took up a lot of my time and a lot of my emotional space. So I didn't have enough time to dedicate to all the things that I wanted to do. I didn't have time to take a class. I didn't have time to spend as much time on those self tapes that sometimes take a really long time for no apparent reason when you can't get that. Yes, I will. I'll put the name of the company in a second. And yeah, just I guess in general, you know, this is a job. You do have to treat it as a business, but also we chose a job that is very creative. And as you move forward in your career, I think it's super important to try to find those moments where you feel that creativity, and where you remember why you're doing this. You know, you're not just doing it for the money, hopefully. I mean, if you are, good for you. But yeah, try to find those moments for you where you're enjoying it as well, even if you're not paying your bills with it. And that's my spiel. I appreciate.
Thanks, Sar. Thank you,
Thank
Sar.
you.
Fabulous. Thank you. But yeah, thank you for to Sar and to Remy and to Bree. So yeah, please, if you have a question, please use the reaction and raise your hand through that fabulous thing. I will demonstrate. See, I have a question. And I do have a question to start with, but if somebody else has a question to start with, I'm happy to defer. Oh, Jordan Baker, hello. Please do ask your question.
Just a quick one for Remy. You mentioned the CAA. Is that Creative Artists Agency?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Cool. And Dunde, you have a question?
Hello. Thank y'all so much for like talking and like giving us more insight about like what it's really like really being an artist after you come from such like structure and things like that from school. I'm also from Columbia College, Chicago, and I had a question about like music. So Remy, so you pursue music as well as your acting, and I'm kind of like an artist who is going through like the same like situation. So I was wondering how you balance like your music endeavors and like your acting like stuff.
That's a good question. I'd say I make for those who don't know, I make electronic music, and I've been releasing some stuff, and it's been a lot of fun, and it's honestly been a really great creative outlet, especially now when a lot of times I'm limited with my creativity, like to just auditions, and it's really nice to have that creative outlet. It's hard to balance, man. It's hard. I've been working on that a lot. I think a big help for me is like setting deadlines, being like, this week I'm gonna make a song, and I don't care if it's terrible, I'm just gonna do it. And at the end of the week, if it sounds bad, it sounds bad, but hey, I made a song. And something that's I've been making an album. Something that was helpful for me for that is like, the deadline is March 31st. This is how many songs I want to have. This is what it's going to be, and sticking to it. So yeah, make those deadlines for yourself, because they will be really helpful for you.
Thanks.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks, Dunde. Yeah, I mean, think about it in some ways, right? Like as college students, there's a schedule that is set for you, right? Which has hopefully, we hope, right? Those of us who are teaching, right? Creative outlets for you within the structure that you're doing in class, et cetera, right? And so when that goes away, yeah, what do you do, right, to maintain your sort of creative life, your personal creative life, right, and or your collaborative creative life. Anyway, another question, Jordan, please.
Yes, hello, me again. Sar, I know you mentioned, doing voice acting opportunities and such. And Bree mentioned the backstage actors access, yada, yada. Is the process of finding those jobs different than just regular film, TV, commercial jobs? Okay.
For myself, I was introduced to voiceover gigs through my agents. So that's kind of how I went into it, and they'll just send me gigs. And if you book a radio spot, you're golden. Um, it's been nice to like see the residuals of that come in. But I know I have a lot of friends that have wanted to get into voiceover. I don't remember the specific. There's a specific website that you can go in and do audiobooks for. I know you do have some voiceover gigs on Backstage, I've seen. However, you do want to make sure that any voiceover gig that you do never says the words "in perpetuity." If there's any advice that I can give you, it's that. If you've taken a voiceover class, they probably said that as well. You want to make sure no one has your whatever it is that you do for them forever, and that they won't pay you for it after a certain amount of time, if that makes any sense. But I would start off by, getting yourself a mic, recording stuff, and kind of see where it goes from there. Or if you like animation, there's like a lot of gigs for animation that are really, really fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Bree, are you doing voiceover work as well?
No, I don't do voiceover. I know nothing about that.
Cool. Other questions? Oh, Cameron has a question in the chat. How often are you getting sent jobs from your agents? So Remy, you were saying you're doing how many, 1 to 2, 3, 4 auditions a week?
That's a lot. I'm doing like two
Okay.
2 a week average. So like there are some weeks where it's 4,
Mm-hmm.
and then there are some weeks where it's 0.
Right.
So
right. And are they, is that for television and film primarily, or is it theater as well?
it's for a combination of TV, film, and theater. But for everyone it's different. It's really a mixed bag depending on who your agent is and what you want to be seen for.
Right. And the thing, and Bree, what's your sort of, how is it working for you, kind of averagey?
Same. I would say on average like 3 a week. But again, like Remy was saying, it can be like 5 this week and nothing for the next 2 weeks. And for me, it's a mixture of both. My agents in Chicago only do theater stuff for me, and then the Chicago shows, and then the ones in Atlanta do all the TV and film in Atlanta, LA, and all that. So it just varies, really, honestly. Like I said, it could be, like Remy was saying, for this week, none next week. Just depends.
Right. Sorry, you're nodding your head. Similar.
I am nodding my head. Yeah, I think it also depends on the time of year. Like certain things will be filming at certain times. So all of your like Chicago LAPD fire auditions will be happening during like a specific span of time in the year, for Chicago specifically. So yeah, some weeks you get nothing for a while, and then some weeks you're like, I have so many auditions, I don't know what to do with myself, and so yeah, I would echo.
Great. So another question in the chat from Suzanne. Were any of you trained in contracts or how to negotiate them?
That's when I say, hey, Nick, you're my agent. Deal with that. I have no idea how to do that.
Right. I mean, most of the work is coming through, right, is coming through the union, right? I'm assuming, or are you SAG-AFTRA? No, sorry, you are not. Bree, you're not yet. Remy, are you SAG-AFTRA?
Oh, no, not yet. It's so funny because everyone has a different approach. You know, some people are telling you to join the union, some people aren't. So I've just been listening to what people tell me.
Which is both things apparently.
Yes, but my agent specifically is like, not yet, buddy. I'm like,
Got
okay.
it.
Sure.
Yeah. Because contracts, exactly. If you're going through the union, that right, there's a contract that right for any kind of union work, you're going to work under whatever the contract stipulates through the union. Little different if you're working outside the union, right, in terms of how you are compensated, and as Sar said, like in perpetuity, or for you have my voice for 2 years, or you have my voice for 3 years, or you have my likeness for 2 years, or whatever, right? But again, those are things that tend to come through your agent, who will negotiate those for you, usually. Another question: if your agent sends you jobs slash auditions, do you have to do them, or do you have say in what you audition for? So I'm curious, are you turning down auditions because you're like, I don't want to represent that company, or whatever it might be, right? Or that product. Yeah.
Well, for me, with both of my agencies, I had conversations with them about certain things that I wasn't comfortable doing. So it's not often that I get one that I'm like, I don't feel comfortable or feel okay doing this, because they know me well enough to know what not to send me for. I don't really, I mean, you always have the freedom to do what's best for you. But I would say try not to like turn down a bunch of auditions, because your agents are really hard to get them. And even if you feel like it's not a good fit or something, you never know what they're looking for. For me, the only auditions that I would turn down or would be the ones, if I get from my Chicago agents, like a theater that's in Chicago and it's gonna pay me like $100 a week. I just can't afford to do that. And they usually know that. Like my agent would be like, I know you probably don't want to do this, but I'm giving to you just in case. That's the only thing. If it's just not feasible for me financially or practically, then I'll be like, I'll pass on this one. But most of the time I will audition for it.
Yeah, I would say saying no to auditions probably has something to do with either financially, it's not that it doesn't make any sense. Like I don't have a car, so if I have to, take the metro out or live somewhere else for a specific period of time and not be able to do my job at the same time, and the compensation isn't worth it, then you say no. Or it also sometimes has to do with scheduling. If you want to make sure with your agents that you you book out personal time as well. Or I know, like, I go visit my family um a bunch in Mexico, so like when I go there, uh you sometimes it conflicts with projects, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So timing and money. And also, if you're uh for looking for your own, this isn't pertaining to the question necessarily, but for fielding gigs on Backstage and casting networks and all of that, like there are some shady folks in the world. So you do want to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing, like Bree says, you want to establish your boundaries and be comfortable, especially if you're fielding jobs for yourself.
Yep. And Suzanne has a note. That's a problem, Remy, about not knowing how to read a contract, which is a really, really great, thought. I mean, again, the details of the contract may be up to your agent, but having some sense of how a contract works and what you might be bound for is absolutely, it feels like it should be at least mentioned, right, within your training. So yeah, thanks, Suzanne. And at a certain point, one would hope you'd have a little bit more control over your own sort of business process. But ultimately, if you're in the union, those contracts are pretty. Although again, depending on who you are and how badly they want you, right, you can ask for above, right, the SAG rate, right? So there are times when you might want to negotiate a contract for yourself. Wendy, you have a question?
Yes, hello. My question, you sort of spoke to this. Hello, Sar. You sort of spoke to this, a couple of you, about if you were back in college, what would you tell yourself to focus on? And one person was like, oh, well, this is a business. And someone else was about say yes to everything, immerse yourself into all that delicious creative stuff. So if you could even be more specific, and let's say you were in your final 6 or 7 weeks of your college experience, and you are both suffering from senioritis when you want out, and at the same time you are filled with fear. You're about to lose the only stability you've known for so many years of your life. How do you spend those final 6/7 weeks? And please be specific.
This is a question for Grace and Lauren, by the way, so it's great.
I would say, to kind of elaborate what I was saying earlier, just to appreciate the fact that like you get to be in the space and you get to create every single day. Appreciate the people that you met too, because you may not cross paths with them again, you never know. And just kind of to stay present in that moment, because I think it's really easy to get caught up in like, what am I going to be doing when I leave here? Or I have to book this job so I have work or whatever when I leave. But a lot of that's just not in your control. So I would just say taking advantage of the fact that you get to be in class every day, you get to perform, and you have these teachers, you get to ask questions. Ask all the questions too. I feel like I didn't ask a lot of questions in college, but no question is like a dumb question. Ask all the questions because you don't have that immediate resource when you graduate. But yeah, I would just say just be present, and as much as possible. I know it's hard because you have to like pay bills and stuff and you're concerned, but try to be present as much as possible, at least in the work and creating and learning.
Remy, if you want to answer also, I don't want to jump in, but I also do want to jump in. I am trying to think back to how I remember like the last couple months before I graduated, and I was like, okay, I'm done. Like there's nothing else I can do right now. I have to, I'm done. It did feel like that. There was a lot of senioritis occurring, and I know it happens to everyone. And if you're not in a project, I don't think I was doing anything. Maybe like I don't remember when the showcase happened or anything like that. So if you don't have a project to focus on, I would say start getting your ducks in a row when it comes to compiling any clips that you have that you could put on your reel. I don't have a website. Maybe I should have a website. If you want to build your website, do that. Make sure your resume looks good. Maybe show it to one of your teachers. Say like, how does my resume look? How would you, what should I put in it? Or definitely, like Bree said, ask questions, but start looking into, practice your self tapes with your friends if you have never done one before, and or even start just look up auditions that are happening and go audition for something. Don't, it's, you can make that transition a little smoother. And I was just, or or this is all very business focused. Take some time for yourself. Take a vacation. Think about what you want to do and then do it. You don't have to, I feel like that how I was just speaking was making it sound like you have to like go. And I feel like at the time I was feeling a little overwhelmed. And I think I just took the summer to spend time with my family. And that was also really nice. So maybe that's what you need. And that's what you give yourself.
Yeah, I don't think there's a perfect answer here. I think there are a couple things that I would suggest doing. 100%, no reason not to have a website. Make a website. Make sure you have pictures, headshot. Make sure that you need a headshot and resume when you're auditioning for things. Go on playbill.com. See, check out backstage.com. Check out IMDb. See what people are talking about. Read articles on the business. See the reviews on The Music Man and why Hugh Jackman is getting bad reviews right now. And, just like immerse yourself in what is about to be your life. there's, if you really love, acting, and you really want to do this for the rest of your life, there's no reason not to read up on everything you can. There's a podcast I listened to the last like 3 months of college that was really awesome. It's called Off Camera with Sam Jones. And he just dissects like actors' lives from their very beginnings. It's like about an hour and a half long. And you realize like a lot of these people didn't start when they were 20. A lot of these people started when they were 30. A lot of people started when they were 28. Some people had, drug problems and overcame them. And other people started here and whatnot. Just, there's no reason to read as much as you can, listen to as much as you can, and also appreciate the friendships you have with the people in college right now, because those are the people in 10 years, in 6 months, who you're going to be leaning on. Hey, I have an audition. It's tomorrow at noon, and I need a reader. Can you just FaceTime me, please, at like 11 a.m. tomorrow? It'll be so quick. I'll have all my lines memorized. That's a big thing. Getting a reader is really important. Getting this thing off Amazon is really important. Just secure those things so that when you get that first audition, you feel confident in who you are. You've done the work. You know that you belong here. Just show up.
Yeah, thank you. Bree, we're working a lot on self-taping right now, of course, just FYI. You missed it by like 6 months. But like it is so part of what we do in the on-camera classes for sure. I do have one other question here, which actually is a really great question from Duda, who is also an international student, and just without maybe going into the massive details of it, but just like, how did you get a student visa, or how did you manage a green card, or how did you any and all of that?
I am actually very, very lucky in that, and privileged in that my Mexican parents were living in the United States for 10 years, and I was born within that window of time. So I actually have an American passport, which is part of the reason why I came to study here. But I do have I know a couple of students that were here on their student visas. Unfortunately, I also know that some of them had to go back, like went back to Mexico. I know some of them like got into grad school in order to stay, and I also know some of them like got jobs with companies that got them visas. So like regular work companies. So I do know that those options exist, but I know it's a hassle, and but it is doable. I think it's doable.
Thank you. Duda, I'm just curious where you're from. What's your country of birth?
Hi, I'm from Brazil.
Okay. Hi. Thanks. Yeah. Yeah, it's a reality for sure. But there are ways around. Are there any other questions out there from anyone in the land? No. I guess I have one actually. Oh, sure, Jordan.
I guess just a quick one. For Remy showed the blue screen. What specifically should I type into Amazon for that?
That's a good question. I'll check it out, and I'll send a link in the chat right now.
Beautiful. Thank you. And Donde is saying thank you for bringing mental health to the forefront. I couldn't agree more, and it is overlooked. Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for sure. So yeah, I do have a question, just based on Bree being in Atlanta and Remy in New York and Sar. I mean, and I know Chicago better. Although I graduated from Columbia College in Chicago way back when, I moved immediately back home to Toronto, and found my way into creating work in another market, fairly quickly, and found that market had its own sort of networking realities, et cetera. But so I'm just wondering, are you making, like Bree, are you working on any small films? Are you working on, on some smaller projects that probably aren't financially sustainable, but that are creatively sustainable, or Remy, it's probably might even be harder in New York just because of the cost of everything. But I'm just wondering if you're finding a creative network as well, where you're at.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. Atlanta, surprisingly but not, has a very huge community of creatives.
Cool.
I've worked on like student films, I've worked on a web series, and they've been like really good projects that I feel good and like creatively fulfilled by. And again, for me, it's been like meeting people in class and stuff, and getting to work on self-tapes with them or practice scenes or whatever, just as a way to keep exercising the craft. But yeah, it's pretty easy. I don't want to say easy, but like there's a lot going on because there's so many schools here that do film projects. So there's a lot going on with that here.
Right. Cool. 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 Thanks. And Remy, are you finding things in NYC?
Yeah, I would say that aren't professional. I took I've partaked in an acting class and I met some people there. And that turned into someone was shooting, you know, a little web series, and I got to be in that.
Nice.
Another thing that has been incredible is a group of 5 friends that I have from Northwestern who all moved out to New York. We have this like little play group we do. So once a week, in college we did it once a week, but it's been harder now. Maybe like once every 2 weeks we sit down and we read a play.
Nice.
We just cast it, and it's like awesome because you get to, you get to read all the plays.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
would highly recommend doing that. It's been honestly my favorite thing I've ever done.
Right. Yeah. Zoom has been great for that. There's a Columbia College student, Hallman, who's in his early 40s now, got an MFA in playwriting from University of New Orleans, but then moved back to Iowa, actually, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. But he's opened a small Chicago style black box theater called Mirror Box. And during the pandemic, every week they did a reading of a play, often a new play. And Iowa, being Iowa, is a little bit of a kind of white, sort of market in many ways. And he was really determined to make sure that he diversified the casting and the directing and the playwrights who he worked with within that theater company. And so, he was casting people from New York and from Chicago and from all sorts of places that he knew. And so he was doing readings of plays really every week. I did a couple of those, and there are often 60 people present for these readings for Mirror Box. And he introduced a lot of plays and a lot of faces that had not been seen in Cedar Rapids as performers, right, into the world there, and has used that now that they're back open. He actually got a really lovely grant from the city of Cedar Rapids to open a larger theater space, and so they're running a capital campaign now to raise money to actually build the space out. But he got the building for like $1, and so they're really interested in what he's doing. To bring a really beautiful range of content into that particular market. So people have, weirdly enough, Zoom has opened up a little space for us to do that kind of stuff, which I think is really interesting. At the same time that it is not the same as a live performance, as we know, but it's, there's that kind of networking as well, which has been great. Anyway, we are at 8:11, and so I don't want to take up anybody's time any more than we have, but thank you all so much for being here. And again, thank you, Remy and Bree and Sar, for sure, for sharing your stories. And thank you, the Sarah Siddons Society, for supporting students while they are in college, and now through the Artistic Council, starting to support students after they've graduated from college with marketing opportunities and networking opportunities and just ongoing professional development opportunities. So thank you, Sarah Siddons, the actor, and the organization for all of that. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night. Thanks for being here, folks.